The final God's Not Dead movie, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. This movie goes all the way to being a right-wing political propaganda piece. I'm not against political propaganda movies, as long as you know what that is going into it. Anybody who watches this movie knows they're going to be watching a right-wing political movie, and that's fine. There's a lot of left-wing political movies, but it doesn't do a good job of presenting its arguments, which is my main gripe with the film. They never say the words Republican or Democrat, but it's pretty obvious. The Republican candidate for Congress dies pretty close to the election, so the party has to scramble to find a replacement. On YouTube, there's a video of Pastor Dave from the previous movie giving his rah-rah speech. So the powers that be decide that he could be a last-minute fill-in candidate. So they send a woman to his church. They send a woman to go find him, who is a political analyst, political advisor, political muckety-muck that knows how campaigns work. She recruits him, Obi-Wan Kenobi style, and he reluctantly accepts the challenge. This movie follows the typical hero's journey, which I found very interesting. A hero's journey, if you're not familiar with the idea, is a story structure archetype most famously used in Star Wars. We have the reluctant hero who accepts a mission, learns the stakes, has setbacks, and then overcomes at the end. This movie does that step by step, almost like somebody who's reading a storytelling manual. I'm not complaining about that. I think it's actually a good thing. He doesn't want to run for office, but he does because his heart tells him that that's the right thing to do. He prays about it, and he decides he's going to go for it. The campaign manager doesn't want him to bring too much religion into it, even though they deliberately recruited a pastor. They don't want him to be too religious. So he ignores that and does his religious stuff. And the campaign tanks as a result. But by staying true to his principles, he has a debate with the opponent, who actually, interestingly enough, is the opposing counsel from God's Not Dead too. So I like that continuity there. But this guy, who is a state senator running for national office, is so antagonistic towards Christianity, it's hilarious. He publicly says that he's done with the silly nonsense of belief. He believes in science. He doesn't trust supernatural stuff. This isn't Arkansas. This is the Bible Belt. I can't imagine anybody being elected in the Deep South who overtly attacks Christianity as his main political platform. Again, this is Arkansas. Maybe if this was Massachusetts, I don't know, Massachusetts is pretty Catholic, but maybe if this was a very, very left-leaning area, that could, someplace in Vermont, maybe, I don't know. But in the Deep South, it's silly. But you know what? He's such a good antagonist, and he's evil. He's like Darth Sidious. He's evil for the sake of being evil, and he just loves being evil. He thinks he's right, which is something that makes a good villain. Even though it's over the top, even though it's completely unbelievable, he really nails being an antagonist. And that really excels the movie. Even though it's silly, it works. The religious message in the movie is almost non-existent. He basically has a generalized defense of Christianity. He says it's good that people pray. He says that biblical values are important. Morality comes from God, so he's going to do what he thinks is right because of his religious beliefs, but they don't really go too much into presenting Christianity to you. This movie really only works if you already kind of know what Christianity is and you're on that side of things. Otherwise, the movie kind of falls apart under its own weight. But it's a valiant effort, and the movie is the most professionally polished movie as far as the look of it. It feels like a real movie. So many Christian movies, so many faith-based movies just feel like bargain basement bin garbage. The cinematography is awful, the music is awful, the acting is even worse. This movie is made well. It's just that the story is ridiculous. But it does follow the classic hero's journey arc, and it's fun to watch. It's predictable because it follows the beats you've seen in 100 movies, but it works well enough, and the characters are likable enough, and you do want him to succeed. But the stakes don't really seem to matter as much. If this local guy from Arkansas wins or loses an election, isn't going to be an earth-shattering thing one way or the other, so it doesn't really feel like it's all that important. With the second movie, this woman's about to lose her livelihood. This movie, just whether this guy has a career change or not, it's not as compelling. And unfortunately, the newsboys are back in this movie. Now, I love a good side plot. Sometimes side plots are good to kind of shift gears a little bit, let your brain reset, and kind of helps the movie flow sometimes. A good side plot can actually enhance the movie, especially if the side plot relates in some way to the main plot. Star Trek episodes, classic Star Trek The Next Generation, the original series, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, did this really, really well. You had the A story and the B story. The A story in a Star Trek episode is that the ship is in danger, something happening, whatever. But subplot B, people down on the planet are experiencing some problem that relates to what's going on the ships. They kind of cut back and forth, the main plot and then the subplot. In this movie, the subplot has almost nothing to do with the main plot, and that's a problem. The main subplot of the movie is that there is a women's center being shut down. They give a very brief explanation of why that's happening because it's federally funded and somebody held a Bible study at this women's center that's being funded by the federal government. And when they got wind of that, they pulled the funding and now this women's center is going to close. And a woman holding a baby, so that we get extra emotional about the situation, pleads with Pastor Dave to do something about it. And he kind of brushes her off. He's like, I'm too busy going to Washington, D.C. running for Congress. He looks sad that it's happening, but doesn't do anything about it whatsoever. And the movie doesn't tell us why it's important that this women's center stays open. Is it a domestic violence shelter? Is it a place for homeless people? They never really explain what the women's center is, other than it's being closed down, and that's sad. How does it get resolved? Well, apparently, Pastor Dave, after winning the election, has a bunch of leftover campaign funds, and he just buys a new women's center for them. And he says, and he stresses in the movie, it's perfectly legal to do this. Fine, whatever. But it just doesn't connect the main story of this guy running for office. It's just a side issue that doesn't really add anything. Subplots should connect to the main plot. There's like two completely unrelated stories that just happen to be going on at the same time. As a novelist, I know effective messaging requires empathy, complexity, and stakes that matter to the reader, or in this case, the viewer. This movie has the most low ante stakes of the entire franchise. Is this guy going to change careers or not, become a congressman? Okay. That being said, I liked it, sorta. It was entertaining. I'll probably never watch it again. So, wrapping this all up together. The God's Not Dead franchise starts in one place and goes to a very different place in a very disappointing way. The movie did not need to go into politics. It should have stayed as a religious-themed series because that's how it started and that's what audiences expect. You don't change midstream into a completely different genre. That rarely works. I'm watching the Fast and Furious movies. The first movie was a street racing thing, and the second movie had a lot of racing and fast cars. And as the movies go on, they turn into spy nonsense and they become sillier and sillier and sillier. This movie does the same thing. These movies do the same thing. They abandon their original premise and just go off into the weeds, and I wish they didn't do that. That being said, if you are a religious conservative, you should probably watch these movies at some point. You'll probably get something out of it. If you're not a religious conservative, maybe just watch the first one or two, if you're interested in that sort of thing at all. And if you're watching this video and if you're still with me, you probably are at least a little bit interested. I'd value your thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think. Did you like the God's Not Dead franchise? I'm open to suggestions. Are there other faith-based movies that are really good that I should take a look at? Or are there any that are really, really bad that I should take a look at because they're really, really bad? Or a completely unrelated movie that doesn't get enough attention online? Let me know in the comments what you think. Drop a comment down below. It would be very much appreciated. Like and subscribe. That would be appreciated as well. My name is Eric Wilford Watson, signing out.